Hi, welcome to Fire Engineering's Humpday Hangout. Here we are, obviously on Wednesday. Uh, Another great show for you folks. Whether you're watching us live right now, hopefully that's the case. If not, we know we have a bunch of you that watch it afterwards. But we've got some great people with us today. I'm sitting next to the boss, my good buddy and brother, Chief Bobby Halton. And then we've got two great guests. Again, I'm going to introduce here in a second for those that didn't join us the other night. And I guess the lead-in for this was, we wanted to talk about September 11th, and rather than, we always revisit the hurt, which is so horrible, where we can actually talk about, remember, and celebrate the lives of those that we lost that day. So many special people, and actually some since then too, because of what happened that day. If you were with us on a radio show, we ended up the server, not through Fire Engineering, but the server through the Blog Talk Radio folks collapsed on us and booted us off about 40 minutes into. We were right in the middle of an incredible conversation. So without anything further, Bobby, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our two guests.
Please do.
Okay. First, folks, and I'm going to read their bios because I did this the other night, and there's a reason. There's a lot of young firefighters that are coming on that have heard the names but not really, the background, and it's very important, and I want to get to that in a second here. First off, I want to talk to you about Deputy Chief Jay Jonas. Chief Jonas is a deputy with the New York City Fire Department. He's a veteran of 36 years and is currently assigned to the 7th Division in the Bronx. Among his many duties, he also oversees the training and safety in the 7th Division. The Division 7, by the way, carries within it 41 units and 6 battalions. He has worked in the South Bronx and Harlem, the Lower East Side, Chinatown, Greenwich Village areas of New York City. He has a bachelor's degree in fire administration from Empire State College. He is a graduate of the West Point Counterterrorism School and the Fire Officers Management Institute conducted by Columbia University. Chief Jonas also wrote the FDNY procedures on how to rescue trapped firefighters. On September 11th, 2001, Jay Jonas was the captain of Ladder Company 6 in the Chinatown section of Lower Manhattan. His unit was one of the first to arrive at the World Trade Center. While in the middle of a rescue of a woman, the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed on him and his unit. Miraculously, all the firefighters from Ladder Company 6 and the woman they were rescuing survived. Their story has been documented in numerous books and periodicals and have been the subject of documentaries by NBC's Dateline, Miracle of Ladder Company 6, the History Channel's Miracle of Stairwell B, ABC's Report from Ground Zero, and the Oprah Winfrey Network's Miracle Detectives. Chief Jonas has received the Bishop's Cross from the New York Diocese of Episcopal Church, the Fireman of the Year Award from the New York City Rotary Club, the Bravest Award by Firefighters Quarterly, the first ever Liberty Medal for Leadership by the New York Post, and was chosen to receive the Men of the Year Award by the Men's World Day organization, which was presented by Mikhail Gorbachev and Paul McCartney. Chief Jonas was also chosen to represent the FDNY at President George W. Bush's very, very noted address to the country on September 20th, 2011. And Chief Jonas is married, has 3 children, a son and 2 daughters, and is a great dad. You'd be hard-pressed, I say this every time I mention Jay, you'd be hard-pressed to find an FDNY firefighter who has worked for him who wouldn't tell you that Jay has made them a better person, a better firefighter, in most cases saved their life. I love this quote from Jay. I had the opportunity to introduce him at a talk he did for us in Denton County, Texas, and this quote from Jay was perfect. The only way the Osama bin Laden demise would have been any greater was if they captured him alive and dropped him from a helicopter 110 stories high. So that's our first guest we'll introduce. Our second one is an incredible leader and mentor. He's a mentor and a friend of mine, Captain Mike Dugan. Captain Dugan served with the FDNY for 27 years. His last assignment is the captain of Ladder Company 123 in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. As a lieutenant, Mike served in Ladder Company 42 in the South Bronx. Prior to that, while assigned as a firefighter in Ladder Company 43 in Spanish Harlem, firefighter Dugan received the James Gordon Bennett Medal in 1992 and the Harry M. Archer Medal in 1993, the FDNY's highest award for bravery. I'm saying this because Mike is typical of a lot of incredible and great people out there, leaders that they're modest, and you would never hear that from him. So you're going to hear it from me because I think it's incredible. And that's just a small part about Mikey there. He's also a former volunteer firefighter, having served in New York State, and has been involved with the fire service for over 39 years. He's been instructor at FDIC International for years. If you've been to FDIC, you've probably been through one of his classes. I bet if you haven't, you're missing. Sits on the Fire Engineering FDIC Advisory Board. Captain Dugan has been featured, is a featured lecturer around the country on topics dealing with truck company operations, building construction, size up, and today's fire service, to name just a few. Mike co-hosts the popular Fire Engineer Radio webcast, Mikey G, and Mikey G, his good friend and brother Seattle Captain Mike Gagliano, and his articles are featured often in Fire Engineering Magazine and on Fire Engineering's website. Captain Dugan is married to his best friend, has 2 daughters, Sarah, now a teacher in Virginia, and Emily, who is currently attending Towson University. And again, folks, it's not about me getting on here or Bobby and tooting the horn about 2 great people, as it is about visiting with some of our newer firefighters, the future of the fire service. These are the kind of people we talk about. These are the mentors. These are when Chief Joey D, when he gets up there at the symposium in honor of his son, and he for 2-3 hours tells stories about incredible people and their leadership, and it's absolutely incredible. So welcome, guys.
And Jay, just as a small consolation to you, the deck of an aircraft carrier where they disposed of Osama bin Laden's body, it's over 10 stories, depending on how much freight they had on board that day. So he did get dumped.
He got dumped. Okay.
Absolutely. But welcome, guys. Welcome, Mikey.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we left off, guys, last time. We were visiting Jay. You had done your newsletter, Show It to Bobby, which, like I said, I'm very partial. I love them. I look forward to them. It's one of the most exciting times when I get that email to open up. And you're very sneaky about how you do it. You give us a history lesson, and then there's a drill. You said it's you sneak a drill up on the guys. I think it's how you said it. And just recently you did one on our good friend Andy Fredericks, and we were able to chat about Andy and all the incredible things he did for the fire service and continues to do. We talked about Father Judge. Mike, you talked about Lieutenant Billy McGinn. I guess, we wanted to visit on a couple more people, and one of the folks I guess I know Bobby wanted to, and I wanted to ask you about was I told you before we went on the air, I got a little frustrated with the media. Maybe I was a little bit sensitive at the time, but when they mentioned they were going off about what a waste and the firefighters never made it to the floors or the planes and everything else, and no, you listen to radio traffic, and you guys know it better than anyone here. Orio Palmer, and Jay, if you could visit for a little bit about that first of all, what a physically fit specimen, but what an incredible person. But if we could visit about Chief Palmer, that'd be awesome.
Well, I as with many of the guys who died on 9/11, with Orio, I saw him walk through the door. I saw he was assigned to Engine 46, which was in my firehouse in the Bronx, and you could tell he was somebody who was going to be special right from the beginning. He was just one of these guys who would, like his first annual inspection. We have annual inspection every year. He took it upon himself to paint the entire second floor of the firehouse. He did it. He came in off duty, and he said, "No, this is my deal. I'm going to do this." And it was, you could tell that he was going to be an all-star right from the beginning. A night I'll never forget with Orio. I had all of 2 years on the fire department when he walked through the door. One night tour in ladder 27, I had the irons and he had the can, and we rolled into a tenement fire where fire was blowing out the windows and auto exposing the floor above. And we had a great lieutenant named Wally Wilkinson, and we charged up the stairs, and fire was blowing out into the hallway. Engine 88 was just getting water, and they were just getting ready to move in. And Lieutenant Wilkinson told them, "You stay there. If they lose water, you must tell them that we're above, and not to leave us up there." And sure enough, right over the fire, in doing a primary search, I found the guy. Fire was breaking through the floor and through the windows, and he held his position. You know, he was a young fireman at the time, and he was great. And you know, that's how his career started. You know, you could tell that he was going to be one of the special ones.
Well, like I said, I just, you know, that would to hear him, and you still hear a lot of his radio traffic, even on the History Channel's special they do on you and your crew, was pretty incredible. I said it years ago, Bobby, if you can't, I don't care where you work, if you're in the fire service, if you weren't proud that day, you were sad, horribly sad, but you were so proud of how the FDNY handled that situation. No screaming, no yelling, the professionalism. I could go on. There's just so many things you could talk about that was incredible on that day and how they reacted to that.
Well, and Jay, you said a really interesting thing, and it was interesting if you listen to Jay carefully as he told that story. He talked about seeing Orio come in on 9/11 and how it really reminded him of his very first time he watched him at work, and the power of good habits and good customs and good training, right, Jay? I mean, he knew the FDNY held its position that day, just like you said. Orio Palmer, this first day on the job, he held his position.
Well, Orio was more than just your run-of-the-mill officer. That may sound belittling, and it's not really meant to be. But he went above and beyond. You know, he would look at an issue and say, "Well, how can I make this better?" His big thing was communication, and he took it upon himself to figure out the subway system and that communication system, and how we can communicate better with the hardwire system that's already in place. And he wrote articles on it, and he became the fire department expert on it without, you know, being anointed a special position or anything. He went to the work in the 7th Battalion, and yet he knew all this stuff too. And he was, like I said, he was just a great guy, you know. And as you know, with September 11th, there was, and I'm sure Mike will back me up on this. You know, people come up to you and say, "Oh, you're in for a tough week." You know, the week leading up to September 11th, and I said, "Well, you know, not really. You know, I certainly, you know, had my moments when I went to 2 memorials on Friday, and remember going through the list of guys who perished that day, and their image flashes in front of you, maybe some of the things that you did with them. But the courage was so remarkable, and the heroism was so incredible that it is a day that's wrapped with grief and bereavement. But I was never so proud to be a fireman as I was on September 11, 2001. Watching how everybody operated, they didn't flinch under the most extreme conditions, under the most extreme danger. They looked at that and they said, "People need my help. I'm going in," and that's what they did. They didn't even bat an eyelash. You know, I was standing in the lobby of the North Tower when the second plane hit, and I was surrounded by firemen from Rescue 1, and one of them stated that we may not live through today. And we stopped and we took time to shake each other's hands and wish each other good luck. And I hope I see you later. And it's great knowing you. And out of all those guys, I'm the only one that's alive that was standing there when the second plane hit. So we knew our lives were in mortal danger, and we disregarded it, and we went to work anyway. That's what the fire service is all about. You know, there are people who need our help upstairs. We got to give it a shot.
Well, and Jay, one more thing before we move on to Mike. You mentioned something once before that you kept telling your guys, and you told us on our radio show last time. You kept reminding yourself, but your guys more importantly. And I don't know if I'm saying exactly how you said it, but you kept saying, you know, we talk about the funny thing about firemen, you know, that so that from backdraft at night or day, they're always firemen. You said the thing about firefighters is, and you mentioned it, they're coming for us, and they're coming for us. And you mentioned about Nick Visconti saying that, but you kept, I remember you saying that you kept, you reminding guys they're coming for us. That's the incredible thing about the fire services. They're coming for us.
I never felt so. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for. So special, and yet that I wasn't worthy of what was coming my way. That I was talking to Nick Visconti on the radio, and I was talking to John Salka and Cliff Stabner and Billy Blake, and these are not only some of my good friends, but these are some of the most competent people that I know. And that massive force was coming for me. And first of all, I had never been on the receiving end of a rescue effort like that. You're usually on the giving end of it. And it was, every time they said it, was like, wow. Every time I spoke to Cliff Stabner from Rescue 3, he would end every radio transmission by saying, "I'm coming for you, brother. I'm coming for you." And that's the only time I would get choked up in the stairway was when I heard him say that. The love that they showed us, and it was, they were, I would hear Ralph Tizo, the captain of Rescue 3, on the radio. He was trapped by fire trying to find us. And these guys were doing extraordinary things because it was such a massive site, and they were looking for direction, and they knew that I was giving maydays, and that was.
Okay, I guess we lost.
You just dropped off.
Okay. I'll give him a call.
And we'll get Jay reconnected, but for those of you who are watching who may not know Jay's story, Jay was in the stairwell when the second tower came down with his crew, and that's what he's talking about the rescue of Jay and his fellow firefighters and Josephine as they miraculously survived the collapse of the second tower. And the rescue efforts that he was just talking about was Jay and his crew staying alive, and the Herculean efforts that were deployed to get them out of that building, and the men responsible for coordinating that rescue. That's what he was just talking about. So, in case you needed the backstory, what's he talking about? That's what it is. And I know many of you are young, many of you haven't heard the stories, and we apologize for that. Sometimes we launch into stories and we assume folks know where we're coming from. So we got Jay back. I was just telling everybody, especially our younger viewers, in case they didn't know your story, could you just, before we bring Mike into the conversation, could you just real quick give a thumbnail of where you were and what you and your crew were doing prior to the collapse that you needed to be of the second tower that you needed to be rescued from?
Well, we were given orders by Chief Hayden to go to the upper floors of the North Tower, which was the first tower that got hit, and we were proceeding up the stairway, up the B stairway, and our target floor was the floor of impact. That's where we were going, and we were burdened with 100 pounds of gear and equipment. So and it was hot, and so we took breaks every 10 floors. 10 floors, get a drink of water, catch your breath, push on for another 10. And we had made it to the 27th floor, and I saw Andy Fredericks, I saw Captain Billy Burke, and my guys started taking their break. I said, all right, we'll push on to 40 next time. And I was just finished talking to Andy and Captain Billy Burke when we felt and experienced the collapse of the South Tower. It caused our tower to sway back and forth violently, and we weren't exactly sure what it was. We thought that our movement in our building was so violent that we thought that maybe it was something wrong in our building. And I sent Captain Burke to the south windows, and I went to the north window to see what we could see. And I couldn't see anything. I just saw the white dust pressed against the glass. And made it back to the stairway, and I saw him walking towards me His head was tilted, and he had a funny look on his face, and he just said, "The South Tower has collapsed," knowing what that meant, knowing that maybe thousands of people were just killed, some of them some of our good friends. So we started our descent, and we started going down the stairs, and even under the most extreme conditions, firefighters continued to operate, and very heroically. And we made it to the 20th floor, and there was a woman standing in the doorway, and she was crying. She couldn't walk. And one of my firemen, Tommy Falco, turned to me and says, "Hey, Cap, what do you want to do with her?" And I looked at her, and I says, "We can't leave her behind. Let's bring her with us." And I had Billy Butler, one of my other firemen, put her arm around his shoulders, and we started carrying her down the stairs, even though that this greatly slowed our descent. And we made it to the 4th floor, and she fell to the ground, and she started yelling at us to leave her alone, and we weren't going to do that. And we broke into the 4th floor looking for a sturdy chair that we could put her on in like a stair chair carry. And the 4th floor was not an office floor, and couldn't find a chair. So I came running back to the stairway, and I was feet away from the stairway door when the collapse of the North Tower happened, with us still inside. So that's where we had our entrapment, and we were trying to get ourselves out initially, and we couldn't do it. And then it was a bit of a mental leap. You know, you're always programmed, all right, keep going, keep making our moves. We're trying to go down, we're trying to get out, we're looking for a hole. We're shrouded in darkness and the smoke and the dust, and we couldn't figure it out. Finally, numerous checkoffs in your mind, and you said, well, we're going to need help to get out. And finally, I gave out a Mayday message that we were trapped. And again, that's a bit of a mental leap for a fireman to take, who's so used to being the rescuer, not the rescuee. And so that's what we did. And the radio conversations ensued with John Salka, Nick Visconti, Cliff Stabner, Charlie Blake, Billy Blake, and like I said, it was from my perspective, every time, knowing that those guys were coming for us, and first of all, I was thinking, well, we're banged up and we're hurt, but we're not hurt that badly. There's got to be somebody worse off than we are, and the word came back to us is, you're the only ones we're talking to. So we really didn't know how, we were in our little cocoon, our little steel cocoon, and we weren't sure how bad the outside was until we actually physically got out.
Well, and Mikey, one of the things we were talking about beforehand, and we've had so many conversations on this, Bobby mentioned something earlier that I made a little mental note of. What you've talked about, what Jay was talking about, what Bobby brought up a little while ago, even what Jay just said. Well, we're bagged up, but we're not that bad. Somebody's worse than us. First thing you think of is somebody else. It's always about someone else as a good firefighter. Mike, before I wanted you to talk a little about Dana Hannon, another incredible individual, but before that, there's a process that I'd like you to visit with. There's things that happen in the FDNY, we've said before, it's not perfect fire department, but pretty incredible. Nobody's perfect, but there's a process from Proby school on up that breeds that kind of leadership, that kind of, that a lot of other folks, I think, need to hear you talk about, if you would, that gets someone to the point where you get to be Orio Palmer, you get to be, and I'll embarrass you guys, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a process. So if you could visit on that a little bit, and then if we could talk about Dana, that'd be great.
Well, I think the process is, I had great officers, and great officers come from great officers. You model the people you see. And I had great officers who, I mean, I remember having my first captain, Danny Marshall, hold me by the collar and say, Michael, slow down, stop, wait. And I said, but Cap, there's fire upstairs. But there's also fire here, Michael. Stop until we get a line in place. And let's make sure that we're okay. You want to go back home to your new bride? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's somebody I've modeled my entire life, Captain Marshall. And good firefighters, good officers empower good firefighters to do things. And if they make a mistake, they think that's fine because at least they're trying. They're doing something. I had one of my probies one time, an Irish kid come in, and his mom did everything in the family. And she cleaned their house. It was spotless. You could eat off the floors. But her favorite cleaning supply was Boraxo. He's in the firehouse about a week, and he decides to clean the Scott face pieces, and he uses Boraxo. Well, I now have 6 new face pieces for a blackout drill because they are so scratched up. And he's like, what did I do? What did I do? You made a mistake. It's not a big deal. I called mass service units, told them what happened, got 6 new face pieces. Not a big deal. We figured it out. But I would rather have that guy who's willing to step up and do something and make things better than somebody who's not. And I think that's one of the keys, is good officers empower young firefighters and good chiefs empower young officers to go out and do it and to learn by doing it. Because, you know, we can all read, we can look at things and everything else, but until you're in that situation, especially on the fire ground, on the fire floor, until you make those decisions yourself, you don't really know that much about it. When I was a young fireman, our officers used to ride backwards if somebody was getting promoted. And their first chance to be a real officer was in their company. And they would be doing it in their company. And I always thought that was just a great idea. The officer would take the irons and we'd be right next to the guy, but he would be doing the communications and everything else. And I thought that was a nice way for us to do it. And that transitions into Dana Hannon. Dana Hannon was an incredible young man. He was a probie on the New York City Fire Department. Well, he wasn't a probie anymore. He was on the rotation. But he was had been a fireman in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and left for his dream job. And he was already an instructor. He was teaching all over the place because he was just such a doer, a thinker, and thought about different ways to make the job better and make people better. And Dana had taught with us at FDIC West out in Sacramento, and just amazing young man. He had just gotten engaged to his fiancée Allison a couple of weeks prior, and it was just, he was going to be someone amazing, and this happened. And I just think it's a tribute to him. It's a tribute to the men and women we attract in the fire service, who, even though they knew the buildings were coming down, even though they knew there was a possibility, they didn't know, but even though they knew, they went and they did it. I always talk about being at the party the day before at 73 Engine and 42 Truck for their rededication of the firehouse. And Father Judge and 10 other people who didn't make that party. Well, one of the guys at that party was a lieutenant down in, who was one of my firemen, Ray Murphy. Ray Murphy survived the first collapse, got up, dusted himself off, and went to the other tower to help, and was killed in the second collapse. And that, to me, is true heroism. That is courage. That is what we strive to be. And when I think about this, I always think of Dick Winters from Band of Brothers. Were you a hero? No, but I served with a lot of them.
Well, and you mentioned Dana. You know, as an instructor, he taught for Bobby at FDIC. You know, as young as he was when he was taken from us, I always spin around and look at. I look at to realize how many lives he affected, how many firefighters that were in his classes, Mike and Jay. You know that are better because of him, and that's what we're doing. We're talking here. We're celebrating the lives of those incredible people and remembering what they did and how they did it. And you know, if you're looking for role models, you both have mentioned something, Bobby. We were talking about this before you brought up about leadership and about being that person that firefighters look up to. They say, I want to be like that guy or gal one day. That's what I want to be like. Jay, you were at John's, and Mike, you were there at John's last day at the firehouse. I flew up there, and I remember you referring to him as John Salka as the Babe Ruth of the fire service. And Jay, I don't know if you remember telling the story, but I was leaning against the lockers, and the two of his firefighters from 45 Engine had set a lot of that up. They kind of leaned against the locker, and they had tears in their eyes. And I looked over and I said, yeah, it's got to be tough. He goes, no, you have no idea, Chief. I said, no. He goes, no, you have no idea how much I'm going to miss that guy. And I said, well, he goes, no, you got to understand. That guy, he said this, he goes, Chief Salka, he can be like a safety Nazi sometimes. That guy, you better have your belt on. You better have your tools, your gear. If he says you don't go in, you don't go. If you come out. And he finished it by saying, I would follow that guy anywhere. He goes, I would follow him to the gates of hell with nothing in my hands. And we've said for years, great leaders, great officers like who you're talking about, that's how you describe that great officer. I'd follow him or her anywhere. So that's that. And for those firefighters out there, when you hear he or she's a good fireman, he's a good fireman, good firefighter, that's the ultimate combo of firefighter. So for those firefighters, as I mentioned this, if you're looking for someone to aspire to be, if you're looking for that, they're all over the place. They're right next to us. And we're talking about them now, that if you can be that firefighter, like Mike just talked about and Jay just talked about, that you're the one they're going to say, he or she's good firefighter. Those kind of people, like you said, Mike, you had good officers. You start off by saying I had good bosses, good officers. They become those kind where people say I'd follow them anywhere. I'd follow them anywhere. So, I want to bring. We want to talk about another couple folks here, but do want to bring up something important, Bobby. If you would, we were talking with Jay and Mikey about it before we went live on the air about this. There's stair climbs all over the place. God bless, but this one's pretty incredible coming up.
Yeah, and it's amazing that we had the opportunity, especially with Jay with us this afternoon and Mike with us this afternoon, to be able to make a plea. Jay, I guess that's what I'm going to try to do here, is make a plea, and I'm going to ask Mike and Jay to help. We've been asked to do something that people say can't be done. We've been asked to do something that, as Jay spoke about, they stood their ground. They didn't waver. The first national stair climb was put together, and it's going to be on October 10th at Citi Field, which is where the Mets hang out. Citi Field's the Mets place, and it's the first stair climb ever that is sanctioned by and in support of the FDNY, the actual organization that suffered the greatest loss of life ever in the history of the fire service. Not just the American Fire Service, the Fire Service. That being said, this is the first official stair climb. Now, unfortunately, to get that date, they had to accelerate things incredibly, which means we don't have a lot of time. We have 1,500 slots. 1,500 slots is all we're asking for. We need 1,500 brave men and women to show up, be willing to climb, or attempt to climb, at Citi Field on October the 10th, 2015. They say it can't be done. We've got about 200, 250 signed up so far. But if you pass this word on to everybody you know, the National Stair Climb, supported by and endorsed by the FDNY and the National Fallen Firefighters, is going to happen on October the 10th. They say we can't get 1,500 people there. But Jay Jonas, they said you couldn't survive that collapse, and Jay got his men out with the help of John and all the other great officers we were just talking about. They got those people out. And we talk about 9/11, but they got 50,000 people out, or we don't really know the exact number, but somewhere around there. Those buildings held about 50,000 people, Jay, if I'm not exaggerating, or I'm exaggerating, don't correct me, because if I'm underestimating, correct me.
50,000 people work there, yeah.
About 50,000 people are alive today because the FDNY stood its ground. And those 343 that perished that day did not die in vain. We need 1,500 people to stand their ground on 10/10. We can do it. but it's going to take you going on social media. It's going to take you stepping up. It's going to take you begging all your friends in Connecticut, Long Island, New Jersey, Ohio, anybody who can drive there, or anybody with this late date can afford to get a plane ticket there, to show up at Citi Field on October 10th and participate in the first annual climb. It's critical, and I'm begging you. And Jay, I don't know how you feel about it. Mike, how you feel about it, but
well, it's certainly something that's is going to benefit the National Fallen Firefighters Association, and you know, it's going to be a great event. You know, if you guys think about going to fire service events, and you know, if you were in the volunteer fire service, you're going to go to the big parade. Well, nothing's going to be bigger than this. You know, how many times do you get together with 1,500 motivated firefighters, and you know, you could tell fire stories all day, and that's one of the best reasons to go to you know, any kind of fire department event is just getting a chance to talk to other firemen, other firefighters, and here you have 1,500 firefighters gathered together to honor the fallen, honor the great men that perished 14 years ago, and it's going to benefit all of us. It's going to benefit the National Fallen Firefighters Association. So seems to me like a no-brainer. If you're within driving distance, and it's a great venue, going to Citi Field. If you've never been there, it's a beautiful ballpark, and it should be great.
Well, and Mike, you say it all the time. I've heard you say it in a lot of your talks and just in conversations as well. You know, there's a lot more than just putting a sticker on your helmet or your car when it comes to all this. And this is one more event reflecting it, right, Mikey?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is I mean, the FDNY has done a lot with the NFFF and with the courage to be safe and everything else, and now they're honoring the 343 and looking for these 1,500 people. If we don't have these 1,500 people in the next couple of days, I'm going to be surprised at the brothers and sisters out there, because I think it's time to stand up and do the right thing. I mean, it's not putting the 9/11 memorial patch on the back window of your car, to never forget. Okay, now it's time to never forget and show up and do something about it and prove it so we can get this thing off the ground. And I think it's a great benefit, and it's going to be benefiting the National Fallen Firefighters Association. So I think it's a great thing, and I hope to see a lot of people there.
Well, and I know I've been checking here, Twitter and even Facebook, and getting a bunch of hits and folks comments about who they're going to be climbing for, and that they're going to be there. But we need the numbers to jump up there even more. But you know, there's something, Jay. We've talked about this before, and we're talking about incredible leaders and the kind of people they are, and the kind of family folks they were, and you know, mentors. Paddy Brown, Captain Paddy Brown. This guy. I mean, you write a book on this incredible person. But there was something that went on with, you mentioned Chief Hayden earlier, Pete Hayden, another great boss, about him communicating with Paddy at one particular point, and it was an interesting conversation on the radio, wasn't it?
Yeah, he. For those of you who don't know Paddy Brown was one of the most highly respected members of the New York City Fire Department. He, before he got in the fire department, he was a United States Marine, served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, got his discharge, became one of the most highly decorated firemen in the history of the New York City Fire Department. And he was kind of like a Renaissance man. He did everything. He was a Golden Gloves boxer, and he was a yoga practitioner. You know, there was nothing that this guy couldn't do. And again, a very well-spoken, highly motivated firefighter, and he was the captain of Ladder Company 3 that day. And I first saw Paddy in the lobby of the North Tower as I arrived, and he saw me. He engaged me. He says, "Jay, don't even bother reporting in. They're just going to send you upstairs." So it was like, this is too big of an operation not to follow procedure. So I went to the command post, and he and his company went upstairs. And after the South Tower had collapsed, we started our descent, and I heard Deputy Chief Hayden calling him on the radio, command post to ladder 3, command post to ladder 3, evacuate the building. And Paddy Brown got on the radio, I'll never forget it. He says, "This is the officer of ladder company 3. I refuse the order. I got too many burned people with me. I'm not leaving them." And I've never heard that before or since, and it sent chills up my spine when he said it. And keep in mind, he had not just his working platoon, he had the entire on-duty platoon and the off-going platoon. So we had half of the guys assigned to ladder company 3 with him. And they were all on the 44th floor, which was a sky lobby, and they were all killed in the collapse. All the burnt people he had, and all the guys from ladder 3, they were killed in the collapse, helping their fellow man right to the very end.
Like I said, I remember you saying that story. Tell us about that. On the 10th anniversary on the show, and I always have. I mean, it's kind of those are kind of things you hear about that. We hear so many things, and we read so many things in the books about what happens on the battlefield. And then we talk about the parallels between the battlefield and the fireground, and people stepping up and doing things. And there's another example of a Marine that was a firefighter, Bobby, and
It goes back, Jay. Whenever I hear that story, he reminds me of John Paul Jones as the ship, the Bonhomme Richard, is disintegrating underneath his feet. His people are begging him to surrender, and he looks at them and turns and goes, "Surrender? I've just begun to fight." And he ends up winning the day. They end up victorious that day. Or the Battle of Bastogne, when the Germans send the surrender message to the commanding officer, and he says, "Nuts."
General McCauley.
General McCauley. It's the quintessential American hero. I mean, truly hero. You don't meet a lot of real heroes, but Paddy Brown was a real hero. And you talked about it. Marine, boxer, yoga instructor, gentleman. When Paddy would go to FDIC, there was no more gracious, gentle, approachable guy in the entire world than Paddy Brown. The minute he met you, you were his best friend, or you thought you were. I mean, he had that.
Well, and he was the lieutenant on the rescue with Kevin Shea.
Kevin Shea and McCormick when they dropped Kevin over the side.
Ray McCormick, and he was there, and he's also the one, Jay. I remember with Captain John Drennan visiting with him for Burns, and I remember very emotional at the end, him telling him, "It's okay, John, it's okay to go." I mean, the guy. There's so many stories you hear about the leadership side of him. What a person! It's one of those people you wish you could have worked for. Mike, you mentioned last time a book that you use and you quote several times in class, and I quote you talking about it, "The Mission, the Men, and Me." How do you tie that? What do you say? You're Captain. Yeah, exactly. You're Captain Dugan, and you've had so many probies come to work for you. Since 9/11, what do you tell them? Because a lot of them, were pretty young probably when that all happened. What kind of talk do you give that new probie? What do they hear from Captain Dugan?
Well, I'll go over that in 1 second, if I may, Rick. I just want to mention one other thing. Captain Paddy Brown's funeral was at St. Patrick's Cathedral. And as Jay said, Paddy was a Renaissance man. At that funeral, I have never seen so many beautiful women crying in one place at one time, okay? Because Paddy Brown was a single guy down in Lower Manhattan, and it was just amazing. But Paddy Brown, I worked with him up in Harlem when he was the captain of 69 Engine. I was UFO and 28 Truck, and he was just he was a great leader. He was a good man.
I think we could suffice it to say right there that Paddy was truly living the dream.
Paddy was, and he was just great people, and he was just. I mean, he and Father Judge used to get it together with some writers, and they would sit together and have dinner once a week and talk about things. And he was just that kind of guy. You could always talk to him, and he could come up and talk to you about books he's read, and he was just an amazing person. So, and you would both know that I love to read, and one of the books I use, Rick just brought up, The Mission, the Men, and Me by Pete Blauber, a Special Forces commander, and I think it so easily equates to the fire service because in a lot of the world, the dichotomy has changed, and it's me, and it's all about me. And in the fire service, you're not it. You're a team member. It's the mission. What are you doing today? And are you on an engine company? Are you on a ladder company? Okay. The mission. What is your job? And that also doesn't only equate to the fire floor. It equates to as soon as you put on that T-shirt, that ball cap, that uniform, you are now on the mission because you are representing your department. As Rick talks about all the time, pride and ownership. Represent what the department, the organization wants you to represent. The mission, what are you doing? Okay, the men, and it's the men and the women. It's the team, okay? The team, what is the team? Because our teams can be affected. Everyone knows my story of 9/11, I think, and I don't know if they all do, but December of 2001, my daughter was 6 years old, going to be 7 in February, and she came up to me and she said, Daddy, why are you so angry? I've been punched a lot in my younger days in stupid things I did. I've never been hit so hard in my entire life than this beautiful little 6-year-old asking me why I'm so angry and mad all the time. And I ended up going to get help. I was not a good team member at that time because I was probably doing silly things and not making great decisions. I needed to talk to people and to get help for myself, and it was the best thing I ever did. Probably saved my marriage, probably saved my life because I was drinking too much and doing other things, and it made me realize that team members, we have to watch out for each other. If somebody's having a problem, we have to be able to help them. We have to be able to talk to them. We have to be able to give them options to help them get through it. And then me, you're the last one. Okay, you are on the bottom rung. You're it. Okay, everything else is above you. And for our probies, especially where I was a captain, 123 had a probies bill of rights. New probies came in and they signed a piece of paper stating that they knew that the firehouse had earned its reputation and that they were going to uphold these reputations. They got a list of what they were expected to do, what they were told to do, and they signed this. Okay, and they signed this, and they were given a copy of it, and it made them understand that they were now part of a team, and the team expected them to be a team member. It expected them to do what they were supposed to do, to listen to who they were supposed to listen to. And that book, to me, equates to the fire service so well because it's about the mission. Because especially when you're going out, you're dealing with the public, and you're saving the public. And then the men. It's about the team, the men and the women on your team, and then you are the bottom rung of that ladder.
Mike, that new probie comes in and looks around and says, it's 14 years, and I was middle school. I felt the hurt. I saw that back then, but I guess there's that question: what do I do? How do I uphold the legacy, if you will, of some of those folks that we lost? What do you say to them?
You do your job, you do it well, and you learn your job. And you have the drive, the desire to learn, to be better, and not just to make yourself better. As all of these people we talked about, they also made the agency better as a whole for their efforts, okay? And they made things better for all of us. And I think that's so big for all of us to understand that again, you're a cog in the wheel. You're a small part of the whole program, and the whole organization gets better. And does it get better in spite of you, or does it get better because of you?
Well, and Mike, Bobby, you mentioned this in one of your keynotes. When you're looking for that symbol of what is right and you're looking for that rallying point, there's certain things that happen on the fireground and in times of battle. We've read about it and watched it in movies and everything else, but there was a bunch of things that happened obviously on that day. But there was one that stood out that again, I don't know if you would call it rallying. If it's like rallying, all right, let's go. I don't know if it's suck up time. Let's go. Let's continue, and whatever. But you mentioned this in one of your keynotes.
Yeah, and I feel awful taking away airtime from somebody like Jay Jonas and Mike Dugan, but real quickly, there's nothing more important to me, and I think many other Americans, than our flag. Our flag is a symbol of the generations of men and women who have fought and died. It's a symbol of freedom, liberty, individual freedom. It's a symbol of all that's the best in mankind, in my opinion. I think we are the shining example to the world of how a system should work, or how a people should be. And for me, it's inalienable. If anyone ever asked me what the greatest symbol of all time ever was, to me it's the American flag. And on 9/11, as the dust was still heavy in the air, Michael was walking across the ground with Chris Engeldrum, who I know Jay also knew, firefighter, was working for Michael. Chris had previously been with the 82nd Airborne and then had left the Army and had joined the FDNY and came across a flag and asked Mike what they should do with it. And there's an iconic picture. Unfortunately, it's been overshadowed by the photo of the fellas raising the flag the next day, which is a beautiful photo, iconic photo also. But this photo to me is more telling. It's a real battle photo. It's got the remnants of the towers in the background. It's got the dust in the air. Michael on the ladder raising the flag. I wish we could share it with everyone. Maybe Rick could turn his book around and we could put it on the camera somehow. But this is the image that for me summed up the courage and bravery of that day, that summed up the I don't know how that's coming across, that put it all together. Booking that ladder is Chris Engeldrum. Chris would re-enlist with the fight in 69th to go back because the men from his old unit were going back to Iraq. He went back. He was the first member of the FDNY to die in the line of duty in combat after 9/11, and he was the first member of the fight in 69th to die in the line of duty in Iraq. Amazing young man, but again, the epitome of heroism, the epitome of what this country's about, the epitome of what men like Jay Jonas have devoted his life to enabling and ennobling and emulating, that Mike Dugan has, that every American firefighter aspires to. And I can't tell you what a tremendous honor it is for me just to be sitting on a hangout with Jay. And every time I've had a chance to hear him speak, it's a mixture of tears and just the most overwhelming pride to just know that there are men like Mike Dugan and Jay Jonas and Andy Fredericks and Pete Gansey and Michael Judge, who always, Ray Downey, all of them, who always answered the call without hesitation and without thought of their own personal safety.
Well, hey guys, oh, go ahead, Jay.
Just to expand on what Mike was saying about being a teacher and breaking new guys in, if you do it the right way, it never leaves you. It never leaves you. When I got out of Proby School, I got assigned to Engine 46 in the Bronx, and then I went across a Florida 27 truck, and those guys instilled not only how to be a good fireman, but how to be the history of the firehouse and what you have to live up to. And for your whole career, you're trying to live up to those aspirations. So much so that when after September 11th, a couple days after September 11th, I had this need to reconnect with the guys who broke me in when I was a young fireman, and they were all retired, and guys like Ray Henderson and Mike Lee, and I just felt like I had to call them, and almost like you're still searching for their approval. And one of the best calls I've ever received post 9/11 was from a man named Bill Dietrich. Bill Dietrich was one of my fire service was one of my fire science professors when I was going to community college, and so I knew Bill before I got on the job, and he was a battalion chief in the 13th Battalion, then became a deputy chief in the 6th Division, and a very brilliant man, a fireman's fireman kind of a guy. But Bill went to the New York Telephone Company fire when he was a fireman in an 18 truck, and eventually, as with everybody who's gone to that fire, came down with some sort of a cancer. And on 9/11, Bill had cancer of the throat, and he had his voice box removed. And he.
Oh man, we just had Jay drop off, but while we're waiting for Jay to get back on, important. Jay's just talking about cancer. Remember, right now you can go online and sign the petition to get Congress to reauthorize the Zadorga Act. That's up right now. Go online right after this hangout. Put your name on that petition. We need to get thousands upon thousands upon thousands of signatures on that petition to reauthorize the Zadorga Act, not just for the FDNY firefighters there, but for all the responders who responded after that, who are now dying of cancer, who are sick and ill. And it's not holding anybody at blame. It's providing support for them. It's never forgetting. I hate these sites that say, oh, they should have been warned better, blah, blah, blah. Go online right now, and Jay's back with us. But what Jay was just talking about is the cancer that's plaguing us. Get online and sign the petition to have Congress reauthorize the Zadorga Act, because we need that money to help provide care for these firefighters and other responders that came in to help after 9/11 who are now sick and dying from cancer. Jay, go ahead and finish your story.
So Bill calls me. Now he's got no voice box, and so just for him to even attempt to speak is a Herculean effort. And this was after the day after the NBC Dateline interview was aired on television, and he gets on the phone and he's straining to talk on the telephone. He's just, as much as he could put out, he says, "I am so proud of you." And again, these guys who I was aspiring to please my whole career, to live up to their standards, and I finally felt that, wow, that I've made it. Here I had 22 years on the fire department, and these guys, it never leaves you. It absolutely never leaves you. But if you break these guys in, they'll be looking at you that way in 20 years. It's just, I was a better fireman because I worked with you.
Well, we should do another day like this. We would talk about, Mikey was like, golly, the hour goes by so fast, but maybe if we can, we can move to some closing remarks here, and kind of, yeah. I was just saying, Mikey, if you know how we always end things, if some closing remarks from you and advice for those out there in the fire service, and then we'll move to Jay. But Mikey, what do you got, buddy? Some closing?
I got a couple of things real quick. One, Bobby is right. Reauthorize the Zadorga Act and call your congressman. Okay, go find a petition, but sign it and get your congressman to do it.
They're online right now, Mike, at Fire Engineering and at Firefighter Nation. So go to Firefighter Nation, go to fireengineering.com. The links to them are online. That's all you got to do.
And if you call your congressman, it even makes it more worthwhile. Do that. Leaders in the fire service, as far as I'm concerned, are readers. They see what's going on out there. They look around. They find out what's happening. You don't have to read War and Peace, but you have to read studies, science, what's changing in the fire service. Pay attention to it. That's where the people that I loved, what set them apart. They listened. They paid attention. They researched, and they tried to find out what was going on. And we're talking about our brothers from 9/11. I want people to remember not how they died, but how they lived their lives, because they lived their lives. They were great family members. They were great brothers in the firehouse. They were great neighbors. They were good people. Remember how they lived their lives. Thank you, and God bless.
Mikey, real quick from the J, if someone want to get a hold of you to have you come out for a program, to visit, what's the best way? Email?
Email duganfire@aol.com.
Duganfire@aol.com. Thank you, Mikey. Hang on for a second.
Mike's the last guy on AOL, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Officially.
Officially.
Well, Mikey, hang in there. Jay,
Yeah.
closing remarks, advice for the fire service as a whole, brother.
Well, I'd like to comment on going back to your introduction about Mike. You talked about him winning the James Gordon Bennett Medal and the Harry M. Archer Medal. For those of you who don't know, that's the fire service equivalent of winning the Congressional Medal of Honor. So, so that's not something that really should be glossed over. And anytime you see Mike in person, shake his hand and congratulate him on a job well done. He represented the fire service extremely well. As far as closing remarks, you can sum it up in 2 words. Be better. You think you're good? Be better. Make yourself better. You can never learn enough. There's here I'm a deputy chief in the New York City Fire Department, and I could sit on the throne, and I could check on all my firefighters. I invite them into the office. I said, teach me something. I had a lieutenant from 93 Engine just got accepted to the the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, and I gave her an endorsement. I said, I'll give you my endorsement under one condition. You come back, you teach me something. I want to learn something. You can, be better. You can never, and take it from any source. I constantly have firemen coming into my office. I said, talk to me. Tell me what's going on, and I want to know, because here I have 36 years in the fire department, and I'm learning every day. If you think you know it all, it's time to back it in. Be better. And as we say this time of year, but you should say it all the time. Never forget, and never forgetting includes being the best firefighter you could possibly be.
Jay, if they wanted to get a hold of you, same thing for a speaking engagement or teach a class, email best way?
Email's the best way. It's I'm also on AOL.
The two.
Okay.
I think Salka's on AOL too. I think it's an FDNY thing.
Yeah. We're old school. It's capjayl6@aol.com. CAPTJAYL6@aol.com.
And incredible. I mean, Bobby said it. I can't thank you guys enough. And Jay, you and I talked a little bit the other night after we got knocked off the air. And before Bobby closes out here, I always say it. I say it. I have no problem saying it. I've said it for years and years. I love you guys, and I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody. You give a brother, give a sister a hug, tell them you love them. John, my buddy, has said you never know how today is going to end, and it's life's way too short as it is. But you had mentioned that, Jay, when we were texting back and forth about. Got no problem saying that. Got no problem saying I love you, brother, love you, and I mean it with all my heart when I say it's not just a word. So, I love you guys. Thank you so much for. There's a ton of great comments that we've been getting on Twitter, and I know I've been jumping on Facebook once in a while. But thank you guys. I'm honored. Bobby, you got?
No, it's a great saying that every day is a gift, and I think what a great gift we received today. I think that we need to be grateful for the things that have been given to us and we've been blessed with. And today was a tremendous blessing to hear, Jay retell Paddy's story. I mean, a person who heard it firsthand was in the lobby and heard it, who shook the hands of the brave men from Rescue One who are no longer with us, and Michael on that incredible day, and Father Judge the night before, almost with a premonition, giving the talk to who was it, Mike?
73 and 42, the day before.
Day before, and reminding everybody that every day is a gift. So take today as a gift and do something that you can be proud of today. Sign that petition to reauthorize the Zergo Act. Go to Fire Engineering or Firefighter Nation. Take the time. Go to the stair climb website, National Fallen Firefighter Stair Climb website. If you can't climb, do the virtual climb. Make a donation. Make a difference. Some of the proceeds from that is going to go to the FDNY Foundation. So it's a very important climb. It's the first national climb that is authorized, sponsored, and in recognition of the FDNY with the FDNY. Don't miss this opportunity. It's a gift. You've been given a gift. You've been given a gift to hear from Mike Dugan and Jay Jonas today, which is amazing. Just amazing. So God bless you all, and thank you for spending an hour with us today. And please be careful out there.
Own that job. You owe it to everybody else. Own it. God bless you. Never forgetting means never forgetting. We're going to stand for a few minutes and chat afterwards to close things out. But folks, thank you once again for joining us. Spread the word. Wednesdays catch us here for these radio shows. Get on the website, do something, get involved, but own this job. You owe it to a lot of folks that paved the way for us. So be safe. God bless you.